What you believe has a direct impact on how you perform. Don't believe me? Stick around. Today's conversation might just change your mind. This is episode 15 of the Next Season podcast, and we've all had that coach or a teammate or a parent or whoever it is tell you that you need to believe in yourself. And here's the real question. When they say that, what does that actually mean? Is it just some positive thinking? Is it some fluffy, squishy idea that you don't really know what that is? Because as soon as they say it, you start to doubt yourself even more, and then you guilt yourself thinking, I should believe in myself, and I don't, and then you spiral. Or is it something deeper? Is it something that you can actually practice and can change how you perform on the field and in life? And here's the reality. What you believe about yourself, about your abilities, about what's possible, can in fact shape your reality. And I'm not just talking about some motivational poster stuff. I'm talking about how your brain and your body respond to what you think is actually true. Imagine stepping into a batter's box or stepping onto the mound. We'll use the batter's box to start as a hitter, fully believing that you're going to dominate that at bat, that you've got complete control, that you're going to come up big and get a big hit. Your body moves differently. Your focus locks in. It's almost like flipping a switch, and you've got confidence, you've got control, you feel smooth, you feel fluid, you see the ball better, your chest is out. That is the power of belief. And science backs up the fact that it has a direct impact on our physical performance. This episode, in this conversation, we're going to dig into the science and some practical tools around our belief systems and placebo effects. We're going to talk about how belief influences your mental and your physical performance. And I'm going to give you some concrete steps to really harness that power of belief so that you're able to elevate your game on and off the field. And my challenge for you today is very, very simple. I want you to stay open-minded. That's it. I want you to stay open. I want you to hear it, and I want you to start to absorb it a little bit. Open to the idea that your beliefs, the things that you think and say about yourself and the world around you, even the ones that you don't realize that you have, are shaping your performance right now. And if we can optimize those beliefs, we can optimize your results. Now, embedded within this topic of belief or self-belief, there are a number of terms that we often throw around and use interchangeably. I'm going to start by laying out some of these terms and definitions, or at least how I like to think about them and define them, including some examples of them. This isn't a huge deal, but I think it's useful to understand the differences. So that way, when it comes to actually focusing on them and honing in on them, the attributes and the actions that are associated, you're able to make intentional efforts to improve those areas. The first is the broad one, right? It's the umbrella term of self-belief, the topic of today's conversation. This is a broad kind of belief. This is a broad thing. It's internal, and it's enduring conviction in your ability to succeed in anything, right? It's belief in yourself, no matter what the domain is. Then there's self-confidence. Self-confidence is still broad, it's still general, and it's trust in your overall abilities, but it's within a domain. So self-belief is thinking broadly about you as a whole person. Self-confidence can be specific to a domain. Now, it can extend beyond that domain, but you could be self-confident in baseball, but not self-confident in relationships. Okay, there's just one example. Okay, self-confidence is a bit more specific to the domain. There's also one called self-efficacy. Self-efficacy drives even more specifics. Now you've got real confidence in task-related abilities. So a way that you can think about it is self-confidence is, I feel good about my abilities and skills in this thing, right? It comes from evidence of the work done in that domain. You can have high self-belief, but low confidence. So an example of that is, I believe that I can improve, right? Because I've proven myself that I can improve. But right now, I don't feel good about my chances of getting a hit here because of my recent slump. So that's high self-belief, but low confidence. You can have high self-confidence, but low self-belief. An example of that would be, I believe I can get this hitter out, but I don't think I'm ready to be the closer. So that's situational confidence. I can get this guy out, but then thinking more broadly, I don't think I can be the closer. That's low self-belief. That's low in the general term. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, self-efficacy is confidence in task-related abilities. It's even more specific. It's, I can get this batter out, or I can make this play, or I can get this hit because I prepare it. Okay, you're not thinking about anything else but that specific domain. There's a couple other ones. Self-worth. Again, that's a broad one. That's about your value as a person. Self-respect is similar to self-worth, but it's more behavioral. So it's acting in line with your values. It's understanding what your boundaries are. And perhaps an example of that would be not letting people walk all over you or disrespect you. You don't have to be disrespectful back, but you have boundaries because you have self-respect. There's self-image. Okay. Self-image is the way that you see yourself now in your physical abilities, your personality, your internal beliefs. It's all shaped by your experiences and feedback from the world around you. So your self-image, again, is broad and intrinsic. It's internal to how you feel. Self-esteem is also broad, but it's a sense of self-worth and value. It's how much you like yourself. That's one way to think about it, is how much do I like myself? And this can get really tactical and pragmatic. Your self-esteem can come from the habits and the behaviors of your ideal self. So that creative player, that person that you want to be. And what is the gap? What is the delta between that person, that creative player, and where you are now? Okay. So your self-esteem could be put into a formula as the habits and behaviors of your ideal self minus the habits and behaviors of your current self. That's your self-esteem. So again, not need to go super technical on that. You don't necessarily need to remember that, but I think it's important to just understand that there are differences in these terms. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about beliefs and belief systems, looking outward and externally, but more so internally. I'm talking about self-belief. And when I'm talking about self-belief, I'm using it as an umbrella term, which covers all of those things that we just talked about: self-confidence, self-efficacy, self-worth, self-respect, self-image, self-esteem. They all have a role, just like a team has different players. Each of those things has a role in the system of that internal team that is your self-belief. Self-belief is that umbrella term. It is the team containing those individual players. So at this point, if you're curious about really what does this mean for performance, I'm going to give you an example. In the 1960s, there was a Harvard psychologist named Robert Rosenthal. And Robert Rosenthal developed an intelligence identification tool called the Harvard Test of Inflected Acquisition. I couldn't tell you what it means, but I'll describe it for you. It was given to elementary school students, and what he said was that he could accurately predict from this test which students would excel in the coming year and which may struggle. So he gave them this test, and then he was able to say, based upon the information, based upon their scores, which he felt were going to excel in the coming year and which are going to struggle. So he gave the test to a pilot school in California. A few weeks later, the teachers were provided the results of the tests and the names of the students who were identified as these high potential performers from the test scores. It was about 20% of the students. And again, this noted that the scores indicated potential future intellectual growth regardless of prior grades or academic performance. Students were not informed of the results of this. So let's fast forward a bit. As Rosenthal predicted, those 20% identified as high potential increased their subsequent IQ score, their real IQ scores, and were described by teachers as more curious, as happier in the classroom, more mature, and more likely to experience success as adults. In addition to that, the teachers said that they enjoyed teaching that year more than years past. Pretty cool stuff. But here's the catch. The test was a bunch of crap. It was all made up. The top 20% of students that were identified as the high potentials were randomly selected. The test, the experiment, was not of the students. It was an experiment on the relationships between the students and the teachers. And when the teachers were influenced to believe that the students had special characteristics, that they were high potential, they actually fostered an environment that built self-belief in the students. They treated the students differently. And then the students started to believe in themselves more and reciprocated that positive environment and worked to achieve that standard, worked to live up to that standard. Performance followed the beliefs. And this is the power of belief. When the teachers had data to show which students had high potential, it influenced how they treated them and interacted with them and taught them. When the students received that external belief, they worked up to that standard. So if you're a coach or you're a parent, breathing that belief into your players or your sons is likely to have a much greater positive impact than dragging them down. There's still time for coaching and there's still time for criticism. There's still time for reality checks and tough love. but positive belief is often the seed and fertilizer and the water to that plant of potential. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is a study and a published reference, but it's not universal. It is one study, it is a small sample size, and it is anecdotal. On the flip side, there was a 2005 meta-analysis of 35 years of research. So looking at a whole bunch of research and studies and experience over the course of 35 years and pulling that all together. And the topic was on teacher expectations. And it found that while these scenarios, the scenarios that we just described in the classroom, they do occur, the effects are usually small and temporary. To my knowledge, there haven't been any definitive studies that validate one way or the other. But I can't even begin to count the number of stories that I've heard, conversations that I've had, and my own firsthand experiences that align to the idea that beliefs do impact performance, both positive and negative. So imagine, let's take the baseball field again. There's two players. One of them strikes out and says, I suck. I'm never going to get better. The other one says, all right, what can I learn from that at bat? Or maybe there's two coaches, right? And the same players strike out, and one coach says, you gave away that at bat. I knew you didn't have it. And another coach says, that didn't work out this time, but you're going to have another chance, and I believe in you. Again, which of those do you think is going to yield a positive result, and which do you think is going to yield a negative future result? I can vividly remember a Legion baseball playoff game when I was 15 years old. I was having a rough game. So I struck out, I had a weak ground ball, and then it was the fifth or the sixth inning. It was a close game, runners on, and I came up to bat, and I hit a weak pop-up, foul ball pop-up to first base. So, end of the inning. And I remember going back in, my head was down, I was frustrated, and I had a coach who came up to me and said to me almost exactly what I just shared with you. He said, Kevin, head up. You fought for us all year. I remember this conversation. You fought for us all year, and we're going to rally. And you're going to get another chance, and you're going to give us a great at-bat. I wouldn't want anyone else up there. And that's exactly what happened. We rallied. They had a few more runs. We came up. We rallied. And then I had an opportunity to come up with one out in the bottom of the seventh. And with two strikes, hit a walk-off double. And I have to give props to my teammate who had one of the sickest slides into home I've ever seen. But it was the coach that breathed that life into me. I don't know what the outcome would have been if he didn't say those words to me. Now, I want you to notice something. The coach didn't say anything about my results, not only in that game or up to that point in the season. He focused on my effort. This is next level coaching. He said, you fought for us all year, and you're going to give us a great at-bat. Had nothing to do, there was no pressure applied for how I was going to perform or the fact that I had good stats to that point. He recognized the effort to that point, built belief on my ability to control what I can control in my next at-bat, and relieve the pressure to perform. It was just simply go up there and have a good at-bat. Let the chips fall where they may. Now, I will tell you that some players do thrive on negative motivation. Some athletes adopt that mentality. If you tell me I can't do it, watch me. And they use negative self-talk or external criticism as motivation. There is research that shows that negative self-talk can, in certain contexts and certain situations, and for some people, increase motivation and improve performance. However, from what I've gathered, this approach works for a very small percentage of athletes, of people, and is overall generally much more short-term and situational, just much more likely to be detrimental to sport performance than improve it in the long run. So again, competing and performing in the face of the noise and the haters, yeah, you're going to need to learn how to do that, right? You're going to need to be able to compete against that noise. And this comes down to self-belief. So when you're telling yourself the same things that those haters are saying, your brain will start to believe it and respond the same way. And then some people also create an alter ego. So they craft this alternate, often darker version of themselves to perform in spite of that noise or in the face of that noise. And I want to caution you on this as well. In principle, yes, I get it. In practice, it doesn't always work. If you create an alter ego, what you are saying to yourself is that you are not enough. The truth is, you already have everything that you need. Your talent, your effort, your energy, your goals, your mindset, your personality, all of that got you here to this point. You can't rest on this. You got to keep improving. And there are certainly development areas that we all have, but you're here and you survived everything so far. So instead of an alter ego, which is that shadow figure, that darker figure at your current state, I want you to adopt a forward-looking or aspirational version, that ideal self, the creative player, which sets that standard for you to work towards. And then you behave and you execute in alignment with that player. This is going to build your self-image, your self-esteem, and self-efficacy, ultimately building confidence and self-belief, and not some alter ego version or some darker version that you have to fight against. I'm not saying don't create an alter ego if that works for you, but you may find better results with a creative player. I want to give you two more research studies that back up what I'm talking about and demonstrate just how powerful this beliefs and mindset is. If you listen to the Huberman Lab podcast, you probably heard these before. I tried to come up with different or new examples, but nothing that I could find paints the picture any better than these to prove how beliefs impact performance. And these come from Dr. Aaliyah Crum, who's a psychologist. She's a former elite level athlete and a researcher in the Stanford Mind and Body Lab. And the first example that she provided in one of the episodes comes from a study that I think she led about milkshakes. Participants in this study were told that they were drinking either a high calorie, kind of indulgent, your normal sugar bomb, full fat, high calorie milkshake, or there were some people in the study that were told that they were drinking a low calorie, health conscious version. So lower fat, lower sugar. I don't know all the details, but a lower calorie, health conscious version. But here's the twist on this. Both milkshakes for both groups were exactly the same. There was no difference in the milkshakes. But the people who believed that they were drinking the lower calorie version actually experienced a greater drop in hunger hormones such as ghrelin. And their belief that they were drinking a healthier shake actually influenced how their body processed it and responded to that milkshake. So they didn't have the increases in blood sugar. They believed that the milkshake was a healthier version, and their physical and biological responses reflected what the healthier version of the shake would show, even though it was the normal shake. That's just wild. That's wild. And that is the power of self-belief. There was another study involved hotel cleaning crews. I think, again, this is another one I think that she led. So the hotel cleaning crews were told that their daily cleaning tasks, such as vacuuming and scrubbing and lifting and all those things that they do, were equivalent to a strength workout. And over time, without changing any of their other routines, the employees started to lose weight. They lowered their blood pressure and they improved other health markers. Why? Because they believed that the things that they were doing, the actions that they were taking in their lives were actually enhancing their fitness, and their bodies followed suit. Again, wild. In sports, the same principle applies. If you believe that you're improving with every swing, every rep, every drill, your body will respond and adapt accordingly. Your beliefs send powerful messages to your brain. They can increase your endurance, they can increase resilience, and every other aspect of your performance. So the next time that you're on the field or in the gym or in the classroom, wherever, ask yourself, what belief am I reinforcing right now? My challenge for you is for the next week, I want you to reframe every negative thought that you catch yourself having. If practice is getting tough, remind yourself that every rep is making stronger. Beliefs are not just ideas. They are literal performance enhancers. So use them to your advantage. All right, let's dive into something else now that might sound a little bit weird at first. It's the placebo effect. And it's often thought of as kind of fake or all in your head. And when we think about placebo pills, we think about fake pills or oftentimes sugar pills that are put in and tested to see the efficacy, the effectiveness of drugs. It's just typically how they do drug or supplement testing. When it comes to sports and performance, if we believe that something is helping you, even if it's not actually doing it, your body can respond as though it is. So here's a fascinating example. There was a study done on creatine. If you're an athlete, there's a good chance you're familiar with creatine. You know it's one of the most researched and validated supplements out there. It has proven benefits for the body and now being recognized as a brain and cognitive enhancer as well. It is known to improve strength and power and endurance and again, brain health, a number of things. There was a study that was done where a group was given creatine and another group was given a different substance with no apparent performance benefits. And the researchers of this study found that even the athletes who took the placebo, believing that they were taking creatine, believing that they were taking the real thing, still saw improvements. It was just the belief that the supplement would work that made a significant difference in their strength and endurance. Now you might be thinking, how is this possible? The magic again happens in your brain. When you believe that something will enhance your performance, your brain doesn't just sit there and activates the reward system. So now we're going to get into talking about some of the things that are actually going on in your brain that enable all of these examples and scenarios that I've given you so far to be true. So your brain activates the reward system and it releases dopamine and endorphins. And these chemicals are key players in boosting that energy, reducing pain, increasing focus, exactly the things that you need in order to perform at your best. And this process taps in the brain's ability to create real and physical benefits from something that objectively isn't changing your body. But your body's response to it as a result of these neurochemicals, your mind is triggering that response in your body that lead to improved performance and then the gains that come from it. It also brings us a powerful connection to the development of grit and resilience. And we've talked about this before, the mental toughness to push through those moments when you don't want to do something. And there's a brain region called the anterior midcingulate cortex that is the key area for decision-making, managing pain, and persevering through discomfort, which are all obviously components of grit and resilience. When you choose to do hard things that you don't really want to do, but you know that you should, or you believe that they will help you achieve your goals, perform in tough situations, or simply that they're aligned to that better version of yourself, things like early morning workouts, ice baths, meditation, visualization, study sessions, reading if you don't like reading, having hard conversations if you really don't want to engage in a hard conversation, but you know you need to. You're actually strengthening the anterior midcingulate cortex, which is building the ability to handle more and more discomfort over time. It is a muscle. It gets stronger the more that you use it. And just like how believing in a placebo can boost your performance, the belief in your ability to push through those hard times activates the same pathways, and it makes it easier for you to handle future challenges. So again, that's how we build grit and resilience. When you believe that you can do it, and then you do it, it builds the grit, it builds the muscle. It's mental framing. It's thinking something will work or believing in your ability that can literally change how the way your body responds. And the same is true of our beliefs around stress. If you believe that stress is bad, that stress is going to bring you down, things like that, you either try to avoid it, avoid the pain, or avoid discomfort, or avoid taking risks, and there's no growth. Or when those inevitable stresses hit you, you spiral. You can't handle them. But if you view stress as a tool for growth, if you view it as necessary and you view it as positive and you understand all of the great things that come from stress, your body will respond accordingly. And this is measurable. There are actually studies that validate that this is not only in bodily markers, but performance metrics as well, is how you view stress and whether you view it as a pathway, a tool for growth, or as a negative thing. So how do we tap into this and apply this in your life? I want you to do two things. First of all, I want you to create rituals or tools or habits or practices. Remember, it's stacking habits, things that you know are going to help you. Establish those routines, okay? And the second part of this is make sure that some of those things that you put in your routines are hard and difficult and scary and things that you don't want to do, things that are going to stretch you, because that's going to activate your brain's reward system. Is going to help you perform better than you might expect. So far, we've talked about what we're thinking about, right? Our beliefs, right? And we've talked about some of the words, but now I want to dive a little bit deeper into the words that we're saying, the words we're saying to ourselves, the words we're saying to others, and the power of the words that we say. It's the self-talk, because the words that you say to yourself and other people have a massive impact. And I mean that literally. And here's what I mean. Here's why. Your brain believes what you tell it. It's like your brain is your most loyal follower, right? It listens to every word you say. And you can't get away from it. Literally, every word that you say, your brain hears and processes. And when you tell yourself, I can't, or I'm terrible, your brain locks in that message, right? It's inundated with that over and over and over. That's what it starts to believe. But when you tell yourself, I will, or I can, or I'm prepared, I'm going to, you activate a whole different set of neural pathways. And that positive self-talk literally is wiring your brain and creating habits of confidence and resilience. And then you can go out and physically perform it. The more that you practice that, the more that you practice the words that you say to yourself, the stronger your mindset becomes. And think about it. When you're going through something tough, whether it's physical pain, it's frustration, it's a difficult situation, it's failure, you cannot give that pain voice. I want to give you an example on the power of the words that we say and how they impact what we believe and then ultimately how we perform. Now, I've had an opportunity to be around and talk a little bit with, not close, but be connected with a very notable business leader, a very interesting guy, lots of businesses, very interesting background, prominent on social media. So you may have seen or heard this, and he's an endurance athlete and he runs ultra marathons and other endurance events. And there was a time when he was really struggling with a mental and physical block at a certain mile. I don't remember what mile it was in his training and his preparation for a race. And he kept saying, I can't get past this. I can't get past this. And so he got connected with another very interesting guy, a former Navy SEAL named Chad Wright. And Chad came in and trained him. And what Chad said to this guy was, when we go out on this run, and the guy's name is Jesse Itzler. If you don't know Jesse Itzler, you should check him out. Very cool guy, very interesting guy. And Chad said to Jesse, when we go out on this run, I'm going to ask how you're doing. And no matter how you feel, you're going to say, I feel outstanding, no matter what. And he said, this pain that you have in your legs and your lungs and your back and your desire to stop, you cannot give that pain a voice. So when I ask you how you feel, you're going to say, I feel outstanding. And it's those little phrases, even if they sound simple or they sound cheesy, they work because they redirect your mind to what's actually going well and what you're capable of. And it's a mental shift that can elevate you beyond that immediate moment of struggle or pain that you're facing in that moment. Okay. Now, there's a nuance to this, and I need to call this out because this really gets the main point of everything that I've said so far and how you turn all of these beliefs into something you can actually practice. And going back to Dr. Huberman on the Huberman Lab, and he made this important clarification during a podcast a few years ago. He was talking about the power of words. And he said that the neural pathways, the neural networks of the brain don't change just because you tell yourself something. So that may sound counter to what I've shared previously about how the words that we say in our belief system impact the neural pathways. But here's the nuance. They change because of experience. So they don't change just because of what you tell yourself. They change because of experience. And so while that language is powerful, it's the experience that creates lasting change. And that means you don't have to expect to instantly feel better just because you said those affirmations, right? Just because Jesse said, I feel outstanding, there's not an immediate change in your physical performance because of that. But because those words drive action to keep going, that is what drives the physical change and the response. The more that you train your mind through that positive self-talk and through the actual action, the more it aligns with your words. The words you say can drive the actions you take, and it's the actions that build the confidence, the self-efficacy, and the belief. It's the combination of what you say and what you do that is what reprograms your brain. So how do you apply this? I'm going to tell you that one of the best things you can do is be your own best teammate. You know that great teammate, right? That ideal teammate that you have. The one who holds other people to a higher standard, is positive and supportive, doesn't drag down the team with negativity. There's no drama. There's strong work ethic. It's all positive and real. There's tough love sometimes. I need you to be that teammate to yourself. That's one of the biggest things that you can do to turn those words into behaviors and into actions that actually impact performance. One of the last things I'm going to talk about in this conversation is something that fuels your performance and keeps you going when that road gets tough. And that's faith. It's believing and trusting in something that you can't see yet. It's also about believing in yourself, faith in yourself and your abilities and your effort in the process. Now, for some, when we think about faith, it comes from a higher power. In others, it's faith in your training. It's faith in your system. It's faith in your process. It's faith in your team, or just the belief, the faith that you're capable of more. Faith is what keeps you grounded and is going to give you that courage to push through when things feel uncertain. If you've ever been injured, been out of a game for a while, that's a mentally very challenging, physically very challenging time. And you think about an athlete recovering from that injury, that road to recovery isn't easy. There's going to be days when progress feels slow, non-existent, or you feel even set back. But it's faith in that process, in your ability to keep pushing through that's going to keep you going. The belief that you have the strength to show up every day and put in the work, even if the results are not immediate. You don't necessarily have to know exactly when you're going to be healed, but you know that you can make progress, and that keeps you in the game. There is actually some research that highlights just how powerful faith, right? The belief in something that we don't see, can be boosting overall happiness and life satisfaction. There was a study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology that found that people who report having a strong sense of spiritual faith, whether that's religious or not, experience greater happiness, lower stress, and a better sense of life satisfaction. So the whole idea is that faith, in whatever form it takes, creates a stronger sense of purpose and connection, which can act as a buffer against stress and challenges that come up in life, because you believe, I'm going to be able to get through this because I have faith in something. And it gives us that strength to keep going, again, even when that outcome is uncertain. I'll give you a great example of this. Michael Jordan, you've all heard it, but he didn't make his high school basketball team at first. But rather than getting discouraged, he used that fuel for growth, and he didn't focus on the outcome. He focused on the process and his ability to get better. He believed, he had faith in himself that his outcome was going to come if he just kept showing up. He had faith in his capacity to learn and to grow and to adapt. He didn't know the outcome. He just believed that his effort and growth would get him where he needed to go. And when you believe in your ability to improve, your brain releases dopamine, strengthens your confidence, and keeps you motivated, keeps you going. Over time, this is going to create that cycle where each small win builds on the last one. It reinforces your sense of self-efficacy. It builds unshakable confidence, the belief that you can handle whatever comes your way. So now we're talking about that broad confidence, that broad belief in any domain, even when the results are not guaranteed. So how do you harness all of this? If you stay committed to your process, the results will follow. Belief is one of your most powerful tools. It shapes your mindset, it drives your performance, and it helps you build confidence that you can count on for everything that you're going to face. Whether that's self-talk, it's faith, it's placebo effect, it's all of those things. What you believe impacts what you achieve. We'll see you next time.